Hi guys, Metal Maniac back again. Uh, this is a sort of interesting video. This video is top 10 bands that I wish were still making music, or bands that are still that I wish were still around. Now these bands on this list range from bands that are completely broken up that will never get back together for one reason or another, mixed with bands that are still around, still making music, but are far removed from what they used to be to the point where they don't even resemble the same band anymore. So with that, let's begin. Alright, at number 10. At number 10 is Gog Mago. This is a short-lived band that only lasted less than a year, and only ever released this EP. Of course, you got an epic combination of Paul Diano, Clive Burr, Yannick Gears, and two other people I don't really recognize their names. But they sound so good on this. There's only 3 songs, but those 3 songs are so good. I really wish they would have at least stayed around to put out at least one full-length studio album, because I don't know, it's just a great combination of people, and just they put out just such awesome songs. But yeah, just a really great band that unfortunately was extremely short-lived. But yeah, a band I really wish was still around and still making music. Yeah, number 10. Alright, number 9. Number 9 is the band Hallowed. This band lasted, I think, a few years, but they only ever put out one album before they broke out. This is the only thing they ever put out other than one demo shortly before this album. This album came out in 86 and they broke up in 87. And from what they put out, from the little that they put out, their music is awesome. The highlights of this album are only really 4 songs, but those 4 songs are so good. I Can't Stop the Fall, Wake Up in the Night, Flight to the Moon, and Cry No More are amazing songs. Not to say that nothing else on this album is amazing. I mean, not to say that nothing else on the album is good, but everything else on the album can't quite match up to those 4 songs. But even then, sorry, I'm really getting off topic. But it's just a very, very sort of, unfortunate thing that they didn't last too long, because their music is amazing. Definitely a must listen to anyone who loves classic 80s heavy metal. Yeah, that's at number 9. Alright. Number 8. What did I have at number 8? Yeah. Alright, number 8 is... Alright, there we go. Number 8 is WASP. Now, yes, WASP is still around, still making music, but they're far removed from what they once were. But yeah, I mean, WASP, as like fans really know them. 1984 to 1999, that's WASP. Yeah, there were like 1 or 2 albums from post 2000s era that were okay, but WASP hasn't been the same in a long time. Ever since Blackie Lawless kind of went off the rails and just became, an overly religious nut job. Not to say that, like, having religion is bad, but, like, some people, like with Blackie Lawless, kind of took it a little bit too far and sort of, kind of, like, just put all that into his music when it wasn't really, meant to be that way in the first place, and he still refuses. Not only does he refuse to play, like, majority of this older stuff, for whatever reason. He also refuses to play in America now because people want the old stuff. He doesn't want to play the old stuff. People kept asking, and he just got sick of it. But yeah, I mean, Wasp is so far removed from what they once were. They're not really the same band anymore. Blackie Lawless isn't Blackie Lawless anymore. But back from like 84 to 99, Wasp was Wasp. Wasp is awesome. One of the best bands to come out of the 80s. Um, but yeah, just an amazing band that just isn't really that band anymore. But yeah, Wasp is at number 8. All right, number 9. Hold on, there we go. Number 9 is Massacre. Kind of like with Wasp, they're still making music, but they're not really the same band anymore. Massacre for a completely different reason. It just Massacre, like when Cam Lee left, they lost something vital. And that's very apparent on their newest album, their third album, Back from Beyond. Not only is it a cheap, like not really cheap, but it's like a cash grab from their success of their first album. It's very harshly produced. Like modern production really hurt that album. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happened to the band. Like Cam Lee left, but mainly because their second album was shit. Like their second album wasn't really even a death metal album, and I think Cam Lee noticed the band was going downhill, so he just booked it. But yeah, just unfortunately they only ever released one good album, and that's From Beyond. But at this time point, in this album, the band was amazing. I just wish someday Cam Lee would return to the band and just set things right and just release another amazing album like their debut album. But yeah, Massacre is at number 7. Alright, number 6. Number 6 is Death Clock. Now, unfortunately, this band never will have the potential to ever make a comeback because, Adult Swim, the TV show company that technically stole the rights of the show from Brendan Small, even though they're not gonna have the TV show anymore, they still refuse to give the rights back to Brendan Small. But Death Clock is a band, yeah, it's fictional, but Death Clock is a band where they never they never had a truly terrible album. I will say the Death album 2 is their weakest, but it's not terrible, it's not unlistenable. It does have its major weak points, but it has a few really good songs. But it's just a shame because, yeah, it's pretty a neat packaged trilogy of albums, but there could have been at least one more, considering that there was one more season to go before the show was supposed to end. And the Death Album 3 is like an example of how the band progressed over time and how they just culminated all their efforts into just making progress. Because I'm not talking about the actual fictional. I'm not talking about the fictional band from the TV show. I'm talking about the band that Brendan Small put together to play as Death Clock in live shows. That's the band. That's a particular Death Clock I'm talking about. But yeah, just a great man. Brendan Small's vocals. Yeah, his vocals weren't that good in the first album. The second album they improved quite a bit, and then with the third album they were amazing. They were absolutely astonishingly just fantastic. And his guitar playing is awesome. Gene Hoglan on drums, like you can't get better than that. Like maybe like Clive Burr. But two different drummers, two different styles, but still, I don't know what rant I was about to go on, but anyway, Gene Hoglan on drums was a perfect choice for this band, to include in this band. Um, but yeah, just an amazing melodic death metal band that was not only technically short lived, but it was they were. I guess they can say they were cut off, like they were cut down at their peak, because the Death Album 3 was definitely their peak. Definitely their best effort. Um, and you could tell, like, I don't know, this is just a great example of the entirety of Death Clock and how they culminated into something amazing over time. But yeah, it's at number 6. At number 5, what did I have at number 5? Oh yeah, that's right. At number 5 is Grim Reaper, a band that was cut down at their prime due to the record label screwing them out of the rights of their property and, just pocketing the money that was supposed to go towards the band. It's just a shame that record labels can get away with that. I don't know how common that is these days, but back then, a lot of up and coming bands did have that problem where like they would want and not a lot of them, but like it was not that uncommon to have like new bands not know any better and just like trust a record label without like doing any research to see like if they had any shady dealings in the past or stuff like that. But Grim Reaper is one of those bands that they were so good, but the record label just ruined them. And oh yeah, I'm holding up the first album, but I'd say their peak is definitely Rock You to Hell. But it's just a shame that they just never got to be as great as they were destined to be, because by the time the third album was released, they had their strategy down pat. They had their sound perfect. They got actual like proper production in the album, their album. They got everything perfect, and then everything fell apart due to the record label. Now, technically speaking, Grim Reaper is kind of sort of still around. It's Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper, but it's not really the same band. And even Steve Grimmett himself said Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper is not the classic Grim Reaper at all. And yeah, even though he's in the band, it's not, not the same thing. But yeah, so Grim Reaper is just one of those bands that's so amazing, but kind of short-lived. Unfortunately. But yeah, they're at number 5. Alright, at number 4, at number 4 is... Oh, there it is. At number 4... Oh, I'm gonna get this out. Sorry. Everything's kind of a mess in here. I have everything scattered because I was listening to music earlier. Anyway, at number 4 is Dio. One of the best heavy metal bands from the 80s. Of course, fronted by legendary singer and frontman Ronnie James Dio, whose voice, even if you hear him for the first time, you know that he's someone that, like, his voice transcends all of metal. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a fan of, death metal or, thrash or heavy metal. It doesn't matter what kind of metal you're a fan of. You immediately, most people immediately be like, dude, his vocals are awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's, anyone who's a fan of any type of metal can still really love and even if, or not even, love or at the very least appreciate his vocals, And this band is definitely the thing he needed, because yeah, he was pretty good in Sabbath, but in his own band, in his own environment, where he could, really let loose and just, just sort of be himself and not have to worry about, like, oh, this is a band I don't really, sort of belong, since it wasn't just, it's not my thing. Whereas Dio in his own band, he let loose. He got to his full potential, and you could tell he just he had fun with it. Like, he had fun with these albums. Um, yeah, it's just one of those bands that now the band didn't like fall off because because of anything abrupt or anything. He just sort of left to do another band. I actually, when I was doing my Master of the Moon review, I made a mistake. Like, I said that the band ended because Dio died, and even though Dio died, it was like after his band self-titled band was already done with. But yeah, I mean, it's just that the band sort of ran its course, and what they could do, they did, and it was just at an end. Um, so Dio is one of those bands that I wish were still around, but at the same time, I think had its glory days, and I don't think there was any missed potential with this band. Um, I think they had their start, they had their beginning, and they had their end, which was not abrupt or anything. It was a very fitting sort of conclusion. Master of the Moon, great way to end a discography. But yeah, although even with that, I just wish they were still around. I wish Dio was still alive, and if he was still alive, I wish he would have put out like one or two more Dio albums. Um, but yeah, Dio is at number 4. Number 3. Number 3 is an extremely short-lived band that only lasted 3 years, and that is Morbid. The absolutely underrated and underappreciated early black metal slash death metal-ish band. Now, I've come to the conclusion, and almost conclusion slash realization, that Morbid wasn't really full-on early black metal, because they did have a lot of death metal elements and a little bit of thrash metal elements as well. So it seems to me like they were just kind of a mix of early death metal, early thrash metal, and early black metal. Like, they were a mix, and maybe that's why I like them so much, because of that variety, that sort of like, that just fusion of all those early, sounds that just melded together very, very well. Now, the reason why this band ended was because Dead left to go join Mayhem, which, Dead and Mayhem was good. He did pretty good in Mayhem for the time he, was in there before he, passed away, unfortunately, because, But, Dead in Morbid, on the other hand, far surpasses anything he did with Mayhem. It's just I don't know what it is. It's just, Morbid is just, I think, it feels like he fit better with Morbid. I think, now, this isn't official. I'm not saying facts. I'm just saying what I think and feel from what I hear and what I've read and stuff. But it all seems to me, anyway, that he really enjoyed being in Morbid. And it feels like he, it really shows. Like, you could really see that he enjoyed his time with Morbid. Mainly due to some of the jokiest stuff in this band, like the song "Disgusting Simila," which was just about, all the song was about was how he hated a certain type of Swedish dessert. or was it Swedish? Yeah, Swedish dessert. Or the fact that in the, one of the pictures he drew, hold on, let me find it really quick. Where is it? I haven't looked at this in a while. The fact that like one of the pictures he drew is Kermit the Frog tied to a cross. So you could kind of tell like his sense of humor sort of like was shown through the band, shown through the music and the artwork, and you could kind of tell he really enjoyed his time in this band. But yeah, just an amazing early extreme metal band with some really amazing vocals, some of the most unique vocals in all of metal, actually, and just some really awesome drumming, guitar work, and the riffs in the songs, in these 8 songs that Morbid recorded, um, are some of the best guitarists ever recorded, especially that super catchy guitar riff in Rings of Funeral. But yeah, just a really awesome band. I'm going on and on about this. I better continue the video so it's not, too long. Anyway, but yeah, Morbid is at number 3. Yeah, number 3. At number 2 is, hold on, I have the album over here. At number 2 is Slayer. These guys retired a few years back, which is actually kind of surprising somewhat, considering that compared to a lot of the other bands that came out with music in the 80s, they aren't that old. Like, they're in their 50s, I think, around like mid to late 50s. Whereas, like, members of, like, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are, like, in their 60s, almost 70s. So, I mean, I guess it makes a difference that they started in the 80s, whereas Iron Maiden and, Judas Priest started in the 70s. But it just kind of took me by surprise that, when I heard that they were retiring, it was like, already? They have a lot of time, left. They aren't that old. But then at one point I realized, oh yeah, I guess it makes sense after Jeff Hanneman passed away, because Jeff Hanneman was one of the main crucial elements to the Slayer sound, and with him not in the picture anymore, it really does. Like the last album, Repentless, you could really hear that something was missing. You could really hear that the element that was there was Jeff Hanneman on guitar. And yeah, they had a replacement guitarist, but he's not, like, he doesn't really, what was it, Gary Holt, I think his name is? He didn't really have that flair with the, sort of, like, guitar that, Jeff Hanneman had. I don't really know how to describe it, but I hope you guys know what I mean by that. Like, because, like, I can't really describe it. Jeff Hanneman had sort of a really interesting style to his guitar playing that really sort of, cohesion. That had sort of a cohesion with the rest of the elements with their sound. Especially you could hear it on the early stuff where like Jeff Hanneman. I mean, I guess it helps that he wrote a lot of the song, like, or at least co-wrote a lot of the songs. But yeah, so Slayer unfortunately will never tour again and will never make new music, and they have a good reason. Jeff Hanneman was just someone they couldn't really replace, and he was a core part of their sound. But yeah, this is Slayer is at number 2. I really regret not being able to see them live. Alright, number 1, the band that I wish was still around the most, Death. Death is one of my all-time favorite bands, and my absolute favorite death metal band. Yeah, they weren't quite death metal later on in their discography that much, but they were still death metal, just very progressive, very technical, and just very, not your standard death metal. Um, but and with Chuck's passing in 2001, that sort of was a huge blow because Chuck was the one single creative force behind it all that um, really, kept the band together because, Chuck Strolliner wasn't just, the lead singer, not just the lead guitarist, not just the lead songwriter, but the founder of the band and the one, sort of, with the vision. And without him, they couldn't continue. Um, but yeah, just an amazing, amazing band that sort of pioneered the sound of death metal, along with a few others, but Death was definitely the one with the most influence and the one that that people took inspiration from the most. Um, but yeah, just amazing, amazing band. I wish Chuck was still alive and still making awesome music. All right, well that does it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.